Hi everyone, Mike here, and this is part 1 of a 2-part video where I paint Ghazghkull Thraka from Prophecy of the Wolf. I'm starting with the base, which I'll be adding a few extras to. So I've got some razor wire from Army Painter, some I-beams from Green Stuff World, and some diamond pattern plastic card also from Green Stuff World. I'm also going to be using some earth texture and a few rocks. This is the bit of scenery that came with the base, and I love it. It matches well with the bases I've been creating for all my kill teams, basically a ruined urban setting. I want to have this I-beam jutting out of the ground at an angle, so I'm cutting it at an angle and then super gluing it to the base. Next I want to add some sheet metal wreckage, so that's what this plastic card is going to be. I'm cutting off a piece and putting a bend into it. I'm going to set that aside until the earth texture is on. I'm also getting some razor wire ready. I'm first cutting off a piece and then wrapping it around the handle of a paintbrush to put a coil into it. The specific earth texture that you use really is personal preference. I'm going with dark earth from Vallejo, mostly because it's relatively cheap. My goal here is to make sure that no one can see where the glued on terrain ends and the earth texture begins. I'm adding lots around the edges because earth textures shrink when they dry and I don't want there to be a visible ridge. I'm also putting some of this onto the plastic terrain so that it doesn't look super obvious that some of the dirt is earth texture and the rest is plastic. While the earth is still fresh, I'm adding the rest of my terrain bits. I'm just sinking these into the mud and then smoothing the earth around them. Once the earth texture is dried completely, I'm spraying everything with a gray primer, though any color is fine for this. Anytime I prime anything, it's on a screw-on bottle cap on top of a bottle. First thing I'm going to paint is the metal plates on the ground and the bits of rebar and razor wire. For this I'll be using gunmetal from Army Painter. For all the stone and broken walls, I'm using the Fang. This is the color of the walls in some of my bases I've done for Kill Team, as well as the floors on my Kill Team terrain. Next I'm painting all the shell casings, and my favorite color for this is bright bronze from Vallejo. Next I'm doing the marine helmet, and I'm starting off with 2 reds. I'm base coating the top half of the helmet with Mephiston Red. I'm then following that up with a light dry brush of Screaming Bell. For the eyes, I'm just using a pure black. And for the lower half of the helmet, I'm using a light gold color. This color is a roughly 50-50 mix of glorious gold and shining silver. And that one skull in the back is getting a base coat of Death World Forest. Alright, that's all the bits and pieces painted. Next is the dirt itself. I saved this until the end because I can tidy up the other colors, and it doesn't really matter if we get a bit of mud color on the other objects. It's just going to make them look dirty. Next I want to try to tie together all these colors a bit with a wash. I'm using half and half Agrax Earthshade and Nuln Oil, and this is going over the entire base. After letting that dry, it's time for some highlights. All of the highlights will be dry brushed on. The first one is for the stonework, and I'm using Russ Grey for this. I'm keeping my brush focused on the edges of the stonework, just trying to make those edges pop. Next I'm doing 2 layers of dry brushing on the dirt. The first is with Earth from Vallejo, though XV88 is a good substitute if you don't have this color. After that I'm switching to Zandri Dust and a smaller brush and doing a light dry brush. Next I want to add a bit of rust to the metal. These are my 3 go-to rust colors, and I've added them to my palette with a lot of water. I'm adding them from darkest to lightest in random patches on the metal. The first is Rhinox Hide. Next I'm adding Mournfang Brown, and I'm adding this in smaller patches on top of the Rhinox Hide. I'm not covering all of it, I want some of that Rhinox Hide showing through. And finally, I'm adding orange rust in the same spots, in even smaller patches. If you don't have orange rust, Troll Slayer Orange is a good substitute. The final dry brush is that one skull in the back, so pick your favorite bone color. Mine is German Beige from Vallejo, and give that a quick go over. And the last step before I spray this entire thing with a matte varnish is to paint the rim of the base. Once the varnish is dry, I'm going to add a bit of grass. 3 different kinds, just to mix it up a bit, but that is completely personal taste. The first is some Wasteland Tufts from Army Painter. I'm just dipping these in super glue before I stick them to the base. Then I'm mixing a bit of PVA glue with some water and adding some Citadel grass in a few random patches. I'm then going to follow that up with some dead grass from Gale Force 9. And there you have it, a base that I hope is worthy of Ghazghkull Thraka. Thank you to all my patrons for supporting these videos, and a special thanks to Brian Jones. Stay tuned for my upcoming painting video of Ghazghkull himself, and thanks for watching.